struck and rich. I'm a billionaire. I'm a trillionaire. I'm a zillionaire. I'm rich. I'm rich.
Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is going gold prospecting today. I'm on the riverbank of the Swift River in Byron, just upstream from the famous Coos Canyon. It's a small township. Only about 150 people live here in this tiny community west of Farmington, north of Rumford, over the line in Oxford County. The Swift River has been famous as a place for hobbyists to try their hand at finding gold for a very long time. Although I'm about to find out in today's show that you can actually search for gold almost anywhere in Maine. I'm also about to find out that prospecting for gold is addictive, very addictive. I'm surrounded by people wearing green shirts, and all of them say Maine Gold Prospectors. There's even a club, the Central Maine Gold Prospectors. But don't let the name fool you. These guys go everywhere, and today we're going with them. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. This radio show comes with lots of warnings. Number one, this adventure is too big to fit into one radio show. This will be a two-part series. We'll be starting with gold panning this week, and by the end of the show next week, we'll have worked our way up to the biggest dredges allowed by law. Number two, there are lots of voices that are going to be popping up. Most of them are the Maine Gold Prospectors. One of them is my wife, Sandy, who scares me a little bit because she gets addicted right away. We'll hear the voice of Senator Tom Saviello, a Maine State Senator from Wilton, who joined me in this excursion. He and I serve in the legislature's Environment and Natural Resources Committee, and if there ever are any issues about what goes on in rivers, it always ends up in our lap. Number three, there's going to be a lot of background noise in this show. We're on the riverbank and in the river. You'll probably hear the swift water of Swift River rushing by. There are gas-powered dredges running sometimes. So keep these warnings in mind because we're just walking down the riverbank to join the fun right now. Hi, Bob Duchesne.
Hey, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Hi, yeah.
Mark. Yeah, the secretary of the club. Yeah. Rosie's the queen of gold in there.
Say, I've been doing it longer than you, but that doesn't make me better than you.
No, that doesn't matter. You're much better than me.
I have the hat.
The hat.
I wear this hat on the river every time I go prospecting because when I used to work up the East Branch, just one little area, the guys would all pick on me and tell me, you can't wear a hat like that on the river. So I made sure I wore it every time. And now it's become my good luck hat. Sometimes I have to change out the flower. It gets a little ratty looking.
I would expect anyone who wears a hat like that to also have a mule and a pickaxe.
I really want to have a donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do need a good donkey. Would be great.
Yeah.
Somebody to carry all this stuff around.
This was last time up. This is not the common case, but that was a very, 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 very good day.
So that's what it looks like in its natural state.
And this is what my wife found.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty. That's all shined out, right?
No?
No, that's how.
All I did was I put it in some CLR, calcium line rust remover, and it takes all the oxidation right off it.
Wow, beautiful.
Now what we're actually looking at, just for radio purposes, is little vials, about an inch and a quarter long, and it's full of a liquid. What's the liquid inside?
Water.
Just water.
Yeah.
And then little gold flecks at the bottom. And this was
That's correct.
You found all this in one day of prospecting.
Yes.
And it's only enough to make one gold tooth out of, or less.
Or less. It's worth probably $100, maybe a little more than $100.
Yep.
The reason why we put it in water, so you don't do this and possibly break it, so you lose some of the larger ones. And then,
oh, geez, these are pretty large. These are.
And then out on the river, I use plastic,
Yeah.
and I haven't cleaned this up yet. But you'll see a little piece of lead floating around in there.
All right, I know this is definitional, but at what point does it stop being a flake and starts becoming a nugget?
A flake is a little bit bigger than a speck. A picker is something you can take your fingers and pick out of the box. And a nugget is a nugget. Okay.
When you start jumping around and yelling.
Yeah, when you start screaming and hollering and gold, I found gold. My largest piece so far is a little bit bigger than a lima bean.
Oh, wow. Really?
And I was by myself, and I found it with a friend's dredge, and I jumped up and I'm screaming and I'm hollering, and the squirrels are looking at me. It's like, what's wrong with this guy? But I had no one to share it with.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, does this get lonely sometimes because you're out here having a lot of fun and there's nobody? Actually, that's probably something you like.
My wife wanted to buy me an underwater MP3 player with headphones. so I could listen to, music underwater. And I said, I could do that, but I need to listen to the motor on the dredge.
Yeah.
I need to listen to the rocks going through, because occasionally we'll take a rock up the dredge nozzle a little bit too big, and then you get a jam. And I'm a professional at getting jams in the hoses.
Why don't we start with here we are. This is what river? This is the basics. What river are we on?
We're on the Swift River, at the confluence of the East Branch of the Swift River. And as we were driving in on the Byron Road, you'd notice the river on your right, and that was the East Branch, and this is where it comes into the main branch.
This has been famous for gold panning for a very long time.
A very long time. I think it was the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And
so what is it about this river?
well, it's mainly what we call placer gold. It was brought in by glacial till in glaciers as they move down. However, there has been discussion, and you'll read up on certain areas about the Byron area, that potentially there is an area where there's actually possibly lode gold that has come out of fractures. I don't know. Rosie will know more about that, whether that's true or not. I've read different things over the years. There's been a lot of speculation, especially in the early 1900s.
Now, when you say lode gold, what you mean is a vein of gold?
This would be a vein of gold, yes. This would be
a rich find somewhere.
Yes.
It's out there somewhere.
So they've searched for it for years. I don't think anybody ever found it.
So what might have happened, for instance, is the glacier comes by, scrapes the mountain, scrapes the ridge, whatever, scrapes into that lode somewhere and drops it in the river. I'm just making this up.
Yeah,
exactly. It's called placer gold.
Placer gold, okay.
Yeah.
Every now and then I get one right.
But it can be up to like 100 miles away that it came from, or 200 miles away. The glaciers carried a lot of debris with it over tens of thousands of years, and just whatever happened to drop out. We were closer to the end of the glacier.
So the whole river actually can have gold in it because it all floats, well, it gets washed downstream. It doesn't float downstream.
But much of Western Maine, you'll find in most of your small streams and everywhere, you'll find a small amount of gold. A lot of times it's barely visible. It's very small. The Byron area just happens to be one of those areas where just a lot more of it was dropped.
We're standing next to the Swift River in Byron, and we're prospecting for gold. I'm surrounded by several prospectors. Mark is doing most of the talking, but others are chiming in. This whole time, I'm thinking that this river looks like many other rivers in Maine. So do they all have gold too? How could you tell the difference? Is there a difference? I'll ask that next when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns in a moment on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. If you've just joined us, I'm standing next to the Swift River in Byron with members of the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club. Club members come from all over the state, and sometimes they put on demonstrations and stuff. We're about to pan for gold. But first, what makes this Swift River so famous for gold? You know, I stand here and it looks just like I could be standing in the Carrabassett River.
Absolutely.
And yet this one's famous, the Carrabassett isn't for gold, as far as I know. What's the difference?
Nothing.
Nothing? No difference? Do you pan over there too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There is gold in the
it's just more well known.
It's more well known, I think.
And the bigger golds.
And there's more nuggets have been found here. I think over time, it's just like you said, it's been more well known in Byron. The history is there. There's the access is there.
Well, access, I guess, matters because you've got everything in a pickup truck and you got to get it down to a stream. And hiking this stuff through the woods several miles would not be fun. So this river does skirt the road quite a bit. Whereas Carrabassett just sort of brushes every now and then it goes back into the forest.
You look for bedrock or even glacial clay layers because the rock will stop the gold from going any deeper, and the same with the clay. So if you can find those areas and you're not digging 10, 15 feet down to get to this stuff, you'll find what's called a pay streak typically above the rock layer or the clay layer.
So there are other rivers that look just like this that you've tried before and they just sucked?
Yep. Yep. Almost all of this is a typical gold river where you've got all these rounded rocks. There's gravelly. There's no moss on any of the rocks. These streams flood so often that everything here is moving, which creates pockets for the gold as it moves. It'll drop into little cracks behind the bedrock or in bellies in the clay layer and on inside bends and that kind of stuff. And that's what we're looking for as prospectors, is not just those occasional flakes, but those areas where it has built up.
Yeah. So do you ever get out the DeLorme's atlas and look at the rivers?
Wear it out. Yep, wear it out. Google Maps. We've got. That's it.
After a rainstorm like yesterday, where you did have pretty good flow down through here, will that replenish what's been taken out? So those are also things you look for?
Yeah, definitely. It'll move it. Usually it takes a really good storm to move gold. Any of the hurricanes we've had in the last 4 or 5 years really moved some material. Ice in the spring, when you get floods like that, the ice will actually freeze with the rocks and the whole thing will go downstream. All of this stuff moves. And it's actually kind of terrifying at times to see this when it's flooding. But it's most of your gold streams look like this.
Well, my second guess would be then the spring runoff moves a lot of gold and spreads it out along. I mean, you may have panned this entire section every year for years, and yet more gold will keep showing up.
Yeah, there's no way you can dig all this up. People have been digging here for 100 years, and there's still gold everywhere.
Every spring it looks like it's brand new and nobody's been here. It's amazing.
Even after just the storm we had the other night, it's just erases everything you did.
No kidding.
Yeah, just gone. Any hole you had.
From an environmental standpoint, which we went through, is that you guys will create many holes that are out here sometimes, but when we get the first storm that goes through, you can't find it again. It's gone.
The voice you're hearing now is Senator Tom Saviello. Now, I wasn't in the legislature last session, but Tom was, and there was a bill that came in front of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee to look at dredging and assess its potential detrimental effects. What these guys are doing is nothing like the wholesale changes to a river that an industrial commercial operation could make. Tom tells me privately that the club did a great job during that bill, explaining the difference. We'll also hear from Philip Moulton in a moment. Phil is president of the club.
It's not like you're bringing the huge dredge we found of 8 inches. You're bringing little 1.5 inch, 2 inch things here that are helping you get this stuff out.
With a lawnmower engine, and that's about as big as the stuff gets. It's all recreational. You're not going to come out here and make money doing this. If you think so, you're probably not going to last long.
And I think 90% of the people or 100% of the people who do this do it for the therapy, It's like fishing. You don't go out gold prospecting because you want to go out and find $100 a day in gold. You don't go fishing because you need to come home with $100 worth of fish every day. It's your recreation.
All right, show of hands, who actually breaks even doing this? And no hands go up.
I probably paid for my equipment at this point, but not gas. Just getting there cost you like $20 or something. So if I pay for gas during the day, I'm pretty happy.
Rob, one of the things we had in the committee was about the environment and the fish habitat. And you told me a little story the other day about creating, when the water was so low and so warm, when you created these mini caves, if you will, or caverns. What happened?
Well, what you end up with is that as we're digging, especially in times of the year like this where the water levels can be low, you're creating what's called a thermal refuge. Refugia is the scientific term they use for it.
How many points is that in Scrabble?
So I mean, we can say, well, you dug a hole, and what lives in the hole? Well, actually, fish live in the hole, and they want to get that depth and also the protection from predators and so forth. So usually, as you're working, you'll find that the fish come right in and join you, and it gives them a spot to be. And usually, when I fill in a hole, I like to fill it in with large rocks. So we're supposed to go in after ourselves and fill it up. So I like to put in some fairly good-sized rocks and leave the space between those rocks, because a lot of different aquatic insects and the fish love to to stay hidden and up inside those areas. It just gives them a place for, another, whether it be a week or so forth, until the next rain comes or the next storm comes and changes the river again.
And you'll see them darting in and out of the rocks.
And you've very often seen them feeding below the sluice boxes where the material is running through one of our pieces of equipment to classify the gravel and the gold. And the trout are just, built up right below the sluice box, feeding on whatever we dug up. I mean, if any fisherman comes along and asks where the fish are, we just point to below the sluice box. That's where they are.
A well-known trick that some of the guys out west, where they have, they're using some bigger equipment, it's more of a commercial operation, that the fly fishermen who know what's going on actually come in specifically to fish the tailing area out behind a dredge, because there's a little bit of turbidity still there and so forth, which a lot of fish actually like a small amount of turbidity because they can hide from predators, and they'll feed more actively that way. And so the fly fishermen know that they come in and they cast downstream. Those fish are active because they're seeing this material float, and they're looking for something. And they have very good recoveries. So
I actually had a fly fisherman about 6 or 7 years ago. I thought he was going to come up and hug me. I really do. We were dredging with a 4-inch dredge, and we could see him coming up the stream. It was a catch and release stream, and he was hitting all the little pools all along the way. Well, he came across us, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad to see you guys up here." And he goes, "Do you mind if I fish in your hole?" We were having lunch, so he said, "Have at it." So he starts casting. Well, we knew there was some brook trout in there. Well, he caught, I think he caught 6 or 7 of them, and he took them off his hook, and he put them right back in the stream, and they were still in there when we left. And he had a hell of a time, and he kept going upstream.
Let's switch gears a little bit, and you can tell me exactly what it is you do out here, starting with the low level, just panning, and then we'll talk about the machines.
We can take you to the equipment and do it as we do that.
Yeah, let's go actually do it.
We can start with the small stuff and kind of work our way up.
Up there and everything?
Yeah, I'm all set to go.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is it. I've only ever seen this in old westerns, panning for gold. We're grabbing pans, and they're going to show me how it's done. I'm with the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club. We're in the Swift River in Byron, and from what I've seen so far, it's no wonder people get into this hobby. Later on the show, we'll look at some of the bigger stuff like sluice boxes, and next week, we'll fire up the dredges and watch them go to work. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Today's show is taking place in Western Maine. I'm on the bank of the Swift River, learning how to prospect for gold with the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club. There are about 8 or 9 members here. Several of them are operating dredges right now, the small hobby kind. 3 of them are over here with me, and Mark is walking me through how to use a pan. First surprise, I thought the pan would be metal so you could actually hear something swishing around better. This one is plastic.
Yeah, the old ones back in the old days were definitely metal pans, but they're a little heavier, a little more expensive. These hardened plastic pans work great. They're light, they're inexpensive. You can get one for about $10, $15 for sure online, shipped to you. It's about all you need to do to get started. It's something that you have to learn, and it's the first step in prospecting is learn how to pan, because it'll be used in every phase of what you do after this.
Yeah. Now this has ridges on one side of the pan.
Yep. That what happens is when you're using a pan, you want to agitate your gravel. You'll put a shovel full or so in here. You agitate it up really well, and the gold being as heavy as it is, which is about twice as heavy as lead, will fall directly to the bottom of the pan, along with any of the other heavies. If you've got lead, garnet is a heavy, we have magnetite, which is an iron, that all collects in the bottom of the pan. And once you do that, then you're just lightly going to sluice it back and forth, which rinses the top layer of the lighter material off. And then you'll shake it up again, you'll get the material to drop to the bottom, and just keep doing that until you get to 2 or 3 teaspoons or tablespoons of material on the bottom. And then you'll just tap it a little bit and fan it back, and you look in the top of your pan for pieces of gold. And typically in Maine, it looks like little gold pieces of pepper. So but
they'll be shiny, so you can pick them out of the silk.
They don't. If you look at your wedding ring, it's it's kind of a matte shine to it. It doesn't really glitter or anything. It's just got this dull, lustrous finish to it, and it always looks like that. And so if you can always tell gold if it looks like gold and it acts like gold, which means it's got to stay at the top of the pan when you're rinsing it back. And if it passes those two tests, you're probably got gold.
Explain what you mean by top of the pan.
It's usually you're kind of tipping the pan down so the heavier stuff is going to get into the corner and get trapped by these little riffles in the pan. And then once you get done, you have some water in here and you'll just sort of tip it back. And again, the lighter stuff is going to fall to the lower end of the pan, but the heavy stuff is going to stay at the top.
Where will the gold be at the top?
Yeah, usually you'll have a streak of gold at the top. Then you'll have the magnetite, which is the black iron we call black sands. And then you'll see either a pink or a red of garnet. And each one of them is kind of a classification how heavy it is. And if you can tap it a little bit, it'll pull the heavier material right to the back of the pan. But these are some of the minor techniques that we use as you kind of sit out here and do all of this.
Now, obviously, using a pan would be the really, really slow way to do it.
It is slow. I mean, you're not going to process a lot of material. But if you're, you got a big river here and trying to find a 3 or 4 foot section that's going to have gold in it, you typically would, the process is you go out and you check what prospecting is. You're looking for those specific spots that have gold in it, and you do what we call test panning. And I would just systematically go check a bunch of different places along here until I'm finding a little bit of color in each pan that is showing promise. And then you come in with a bigger piece of equipment, some shovels and a sluice or even the dredge or high bankers. And this way you're going to be working something that know that you're going to have some material in it. And even as you're digging, you want to test pan as you go down to try to find, we end up with gold streaks in through the gravel layers. And it'll move, maybe it's only 3 or 4 inches wide, but it'll be in a streak and even up and down in the layers. And once you find that streak, you want to follow it. So, because that's going to be, it's easy to get outside of it. So you want to keep test panning as you go to make sure, that you're finding decent material. Often have this black matte material on top of the sluice boxes. And that itself kind of eliminates the sluice or the pans because you can watch the gold build up in that little black matting. And it just saves that one step. And, the panning, even if you're in some of those shows where they have in Alaska and they're digging with bulldozers and all this other stuff, which is nothing that we even do here.
Yeah, try to get a permit for
that.
Yeah,
no, this is all recreational here. But even with those guys, the last part of the process is some guy with a gold pan just cleaning up the last bit of it and separating the gold from the other stuff. So panning is, without a doubt, the first thing you need to learn.
I'm going to make a wild-ass guess that the gold and all the silt, sand, everything moves down with the current, and then some of it, the heavier stuff in particular, settles behind the boulders because it's an eddy.
Yep.
So you get a little quiet water there, and that's where it stops. Is that the first place you look?
And behind big rocks, you got ledge right here. You get into the back corner of the pockets. You can see a little kind of a crack or a ledge. You can even clean out some of these little cracks right here that are running right down in here, just with a little spoon or just a screwdriver or something you get it out of their kitchen drawer, and it may take you half an hour just to get a little bit of gold in it, but they can be really rich.
So any slow spot in a fast river is a place to really start. I can do this.
Inside
I didn't study
bends
for this test, and I'm doing pretty good with my questions here.
Yeah, we always look for inside bends, bedrock, cracks, that kind of stuff, clay layers, pinch points, which are where the two sides of the mountains will come in close. And the river doesn't move around so much. It's in that one spot. It's probably been there for 1,000 years, and so it's really concentrated the gold into certain spots in that area.
Yeah, but on the other hand, everybody would have looked in that spot.
You always run into places that people have dug before, and if you can find some of these places that haven't been dug, they're really good.
That's why you get out Google Earth and
You crawl into some mountain stream somewhere, and hopefully nobody's been. And Western Maine is known for gold, but you can find it Central Maine. It's in the Kennebec. It's in it's all over the state. It's not just if you think you might have gold in the backyard, give it a try because nobody's looked.
Stream.
The Duchesne stream
it was an article just done recently, I think 2 weeks ago, about somebody finding gold in Duchesne.
I would never see. That's a little more silted river. I wouldn't expect that there.
Yeah, but that's where they have the canoe races and
Yep.
up in Bangor. But I was pretty much every stream, I would say at least 75% of them I've found gold in them.
Yeah.
And even little brooks that you could jump across that you wouldn't think would be much of anything, little chubs and maybe a brook trout in it, and and it dries up in the summer and it has gold in it. It is just it's around more than you think.
Yeah.
The big trick is finding amounts of it.
Yeah, that's
finding
just
a
it. You
little
can
bit
find gold,
isn't that difficult, but finding any the $100 or something in a day is rare. It just, and then you kind of have to know what you're doing to do that.
Can you just pan one shovel for whatever amount
Sure.
you would normally pan and just show me how it works?
Yeah. So usually the first thing we do is we classify the gravel by size, which means just running it through some sort of a screen. Usually 1/2 inch is pretty good and common.
Yeah.
We've got the bucket over there with a little screen on top. People just use the 5-gallon buckets and the screen and a shovel. You put it in, get rid of the bigger material.
Well, that's a big screen. That's almost what?
That one I've got about inch, but
Yeah.
the sluice box that I use is a little bit different than what most people use.
Okay.
So, but it can handle that. But yeah, again, you get it down in the stream, and you're gonna shake it up really good. So again, you got all of that stuff into suspension, so that the heavy material will just fall right down through. You can see that the little bits of gravel and stuff are here at the top, and you got these rocks on the top. That's all light material. And then you're gonna again shake it up nice. You get those rocks on top, and it's just like a wave coming in on a beach on a nice summer day in a lake.
So real gentle.
Yeah, you don't want to dump it out. You want the water to wash it out. And then usually this is the heavier material, and you've got a couple little bit left in there, and you just do what we call fanning back.
Okay, yeah. So
And you can see the black right here.
Yep.
That's the magnetite. There's some red in there. That's going to be your garnet. And I don't see any gold in this pan, but I wasn't expecting it. But
well, you're never expecting it.
usually I do. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I usually find gold about 70% of my pans, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But again, it just looks like little flakes, little bits of pepper.
Well, there is shiny stuff, isn't there? Is that
Yeah,
mica
I mean,
or
yeah,
what?
that's mica. But again, if it washes off when you do this, and all of a sudden it just rinses right down to the side, then it's not heavy enough. So, but you can see how the black sands are staying up at the top. And that's the real basics of it. You can see a lot of this stuff on YouTube if you want to watch somebody doing it, and it takes practice.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people I know do it and they're all worried about losing gold, but it's not going anywhere. It's right back where you dug it up from. So it's not. You just got to go in and learn to do it and trust your equipment.
Yeah. We're in the stream bed of the Swift River in Byron, Maine. Mark is showing me how to pan for gold, and several other members of the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club are here with us too. It's remarkable that panning for gold is actually pretty easy. It takes only a little bit of practice to get quicker at it, but you can learn how to do it in less than 5 minutes. No wonder people pick up this hobby quickly. There are other simple tools here in the riverbank, and we'll look at those in a moment. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about fool's gold. I'm deathly afraid of thinking I struck it rich only to be embarrassed by worthless look-alike iron pyrite. So I'll face that question head on when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns in a moment on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. This entire show is coming to you from Streamside on the Swift River in Western Maine. We're just upstream from the famed Coos Canyon in Byron. I'm with a handful of members of the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club, and they're teaching me how to find gold in Maine. It's actually easier than you'd think, and it's very addictive. It doesn't take much in the way of tools. We've been working with a simple pan over the last few minutes. Mark, Rob, and Philip have been giving me tips. We'll be moving off to another simple device in a moment, a sluice box. But one of the mistakes you always hear about is iron pyrite, fool's gold. So is that a problem?
Not usually.
Because you can tell the difference, or
yeah.
How about new members who are just starting out? Can they tell the difference?
Yeah, no, probably not. We got a bunch of people, and then they come up to you and say, "Is this gold?" And usually our first response, even before looking, is no. But I'll take a look anyways.
Yeah.
That's the big learning curve when I got into it. I think it was about 2009 when I first started panning, and I think I went through about a 2 to 3 week period looking at the material I'd bring home and trying to determine, was it gold? And I started reading about, how do you test gold? They have acid tests for people who are in the make rings and so forth. And when I finally saw my first gold and how it acted in a pan and how it looked, it's not particularly shiny, but it has a nice yellow color to it. That's when once you see it and you actually have it in your pan and you're able to see how it reacts,
you'll know.
Then you know. So, but it was a 2 to 3 week learning curve. I had, magnifying glasses out and this and that, trying to determine, was this gold, or was this pyrite, or was it mica, or so forth. But
once you see it the first time, I mean, is there enough out there to be confusing?
There's a lot of pyrite in Maine, but it's usually not the shiny gold color. It's usually black.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of pyrite will have sharp edges. So you generally won't find that with gold.
And pyrite just acts very different in the pan than gold does. So again, if you get back to that, does it look like gold and does it act like gold? And if you pass those two tests, you probably have gold. So
great.
So, and the next step, once you get done with the panning, typically is to move to a sluice box,
which you actually have here.
Yeah, we've got several of them here to show you. Again, we're going to classify the material. And
small spade.
I like that when it's a little easier to carry around and get between rocks. But this is, you set your thing up so that it's just setting in the stream. Looks like I need more water. But again, you can see how this is just running that material through. The bigger rocks and the lighter material just washes out through the other end of the box. It doesn't take any gas. It's lightweight. Only weighs about 6 pounds. And 3 people couldn't dig enough gravel to keep this thing busy. So it's a very nice thing for a family, a couple friends to get out. It's cheap. This costs maybe $100 and $150 for a decent sluice box. But you can process a lot of material. You can get a lot of gold with one if you're in the right place. And it's again, you've got these pockets that go in behind you. You get what are these blades that come across vertical are called riffles, and they create an eddy in behind it so that the gold comes along and then drops in behind that. We've got some carpet in the bottom that holds the gold, and again, you're using the weight of the material in your favor to catch this stuff. It's just an easier way to run a little bit more material. Again, we've got the black mats at the top. You can see there's a little bit of garnet in there yet, so they work pretty well. They're nice. It's quiet. You can hear the river. They last for years and years, so it's not like a big expense to get started. For $200, you and your family can go for prospecting for the next 10 years. So
And let me describe it if I can. It's about 3 feet long, wide on one end, and about 2 to 3 inches tall. The sides are, and essentially you set it up so that the stream is flowing through it. It's got ridges in the middle, which will catch the heavier material as the stream washes over it.
Yeah, it looks like one of the old washboards. Where you've got just the ridges going down through and water going over the top of it. The heavy material gets down into the little D's in the box, and that's how you collect your gold.
So you can start up with the pan and get started in the hobby. Then you can graduate to this, which is just a sluice box.
The second step.
You can walk anywhere with this on your back, and
they're lightweight. They're easy to use. It's not going to run out of gas on you or not start, and it's dependable. And
it's a quiet day in the river. You don't have to put on a wetsuit or even boots necessarily.
You can set this up so that it's a nice August hot day in August. Doing this is perfect. This is just what it's good exercise. It's extremely relaxing and pleasant. Most of the people that we know in the club it's very family oriented. The kids come, the wife, older couples. You get grandpas in the bushes or on the edge of the stream digging up the gravel, and the maize out in the stream of their lawn chair just with a little scoop feeding the sluice box. it's a wide group of people that really like to do it, and it's just a fun hobby.
Well, that's the next thing I notice is when you go out in the stream itself, it's all heavy rock because anything light would have washed downstream and it's on a sandbar somewhere several miles down.
Yep.
So if you expect to dig out the middle of the stream, you got to get through a huge layer of really substantial rocks in order to get to any dirt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that would be hard work.
Oh yeah. And it's
no wonder Grandpa's up on the bank.
Right. Yeah. But it's what you want to put into it. If you want to dig 10 gallons over 3 hours and take it easy, hey, do it. I mean, it's mostly just. It's an excuse to be on the river and something to do while you're here. It's just being out, spending some time on the stream, and if you got some friends and family and stuff, it just makes it better.
But I can do that with a case of cold beer and not do any work at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the nice thing about doing that also is if you bring your kids or your grandkids out or so forth, is it gives them something to do.
While you drink your beer.
And they can focus in on something.
Shoveling.
And it's amazing. It's one thing I really enjoy is, you bring kids out and they see their first little piece of gold in a pan. And I mean, it just makes their day. But the other thing I've noticed is that kid has no age limit. I can bring a friend out who's 75 years old, and he sees that little piece of gold in the pan, and it's the same reaction. So it's
gold fever.
It's gold fever. It's right across a broad range.
Yeah. But as hobbies go, is the number of people doing this increasing or decreasing?
I think it's getting out a little bit because of all of the gold shows that are on TV now. The last 5 years, they've gone from basically one a week to. There must be half a dozen shows on now, and that has, just digging it has sparked some interest. But usually when somebody comes out, see how much work it is, and realize they're not going to be able to put the extension on the house or make the trip to the islands this summer, next fall, they lose interest, and it's because it takes a kind of a certain individual that likes doing work that's considered hard labor for prisoners. So it's,
Well, you're just moving the rocks, you're not breaking them.
Right, yeah, but it's, it's still, you got to like being out, and typically everybody here are outdoorsmen. They like to fish and hunt and be out, and this is just another way to do it. And I don't walk as well as I used to, so this is, I stopped fishing and spend the time on the streams doing this now, and I get as much fun out of it, enjoyment, good exercise. And
you get to a certain age where your legs are really pretty much spent, but you haven't hurt your back yet, so this is a good way to damage the entire body.
And it's, again, you put into it what you feel like. If it's sore, then you don't work so hard, but if you're got a good spunky day going, then you can dig a whole bunch of material, it's just
a little gold is kind of motivating.
And it's addictive. Finding some nice piece of gold in your pan is right up there with hearing that deer coming through the woods in November with they're crunching in the nice frozen ground and hear them coming and know it. It's just, you get that thrill of the hunt. It almost, it's addictive.
We're prospecting for gold today on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. I'm with the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club, and we're standing in the Swift River, just north of Coos Canyon in Byron, Maine. We've been putting some of the river bottom through the sluice box, and it's time to find out if we have any gold. We'll take a look inside in a moment. We'll also look at some other small equipment when we return and get to the big dredges on next week's show. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm on the search for gold in the Swift River in Western Maine. The Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club is showing me how to do it. Mark has been using a sluice box for the last 15 minutes, and we're now taking it apart to see whether he's got any gold inside. The box has a funnel front, ridges down the middle, water runs over it, and an outdoor carpet beneath traps the nuggets below.
But pyrite technically is
You can see how this carpet is, outdoor carpet. It's got these ridges going through it parallel. When the gravel's moving across the bottom, the gold gets down into here, and it's never going anywhere.
So what I should explain is we're now looking at the makings of one of these sluice boxes. So you've actually taken off the ridges, and we're looking at the carpet down below.
Yeah, we've taken off the riffle bar here, and you can see the bottom of the box where you've got the carpet, which collects all of the lighter, heavier material. And this is what we clean out, and which collects the gold. And it's doing the clean out and doing the last pans of your material is the best part of the day. Because you'll find all the gold and stuff in there, so that's always fun.
So do you sluice for hours and hours in this and then finally take it out and clean it out?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, you'll see gold build up in the mat, the black mat at the top. You'll just see the little flecks, so you know that you're in decent material. And but yeah, it's at the end of the day, you're looking forward to that cleanup to see what you got, and sometimes it's really impressive, and other times you're a little disappointed.
Yeah.
But
so the amount of gold you would find in here would determine how expensive the beer is you're about to buy.
Right? Yeah. If you're going to get that steak on the way home or not.
That's right. So on a bad day, Bud Light, and a good day, Baxter IPA.
So, but I mean, they make sluice boxes. This is probably about as big as you're going to get for a recreational. And this is probably about as small as you're going to get. This is a nice little one to stick in a backpack and very lightweight. And it's more of a testing sort of sluice, if you're out looking for a good spot to really do some digging. But this will do a nice little job.
Well, except for the gravel screen, all of this would fit on your back really easily. You could walk through the woods with this no problem.
Yep. Yeah, when I go out and I'm test panning, I just have a backpack, a shovel, and a couple pans with me, and just go out and take my camera and take pictures of different places. And
all right, is this like fishing? You don't reveal to other people where your favorite holes are?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I've been trying to get a spot out of him all summer, and he won't tell me where it is.
Is that where you say it's in Maine? Yep.
Yeah. Somewhere north of here. So it's definitely. I mean, you put a lot of work into it. For one thing, just finding a good spot. And if you tell somebody, but half the fun is actually finding it. So I mean, you're getting out, you're looking at new places and doing the map work, and it's almost like getting a treasure map, and you go out and follow it yourself and find it. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and I mean, don't miss out on that.
Well, that's really the prospecting part.
Yeah, that's the true term of prospecting, is out looking for loads of
prospects.
Yeah. And then I've got one more of the non-motorized piece of equipment here, which is called a rocker box. And this, instead of using it in a faster moving part of the stream, like the sluice box, this can be used where it's nice and slow in a stream. You get a pool of water. This tray right here adjusts up and down, so you set it right at water level. You take your classified material, put a shovel or two in the top, and then it's just a back and forth.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a cradle.
Yep. Yeah, you dunk one end into the water, and then it washes here. Again, we got the carpet in the bottom. The heavies fall down, get into this carpet, slosh back and forth. You can see the holes right here on both ends. So that material will go right down through, and this works awesome.
Well, except for the carpet part, this is the kind of thing you would have used 200 years ago.
Yep. This stuff hasn't changed in 150 years. It's all pretty much the same.
Pretty much just the material itself has changed.
Yeah, they didn't have outdoor carpet back then, but I mean, it still pretty much works the same. And again, you're not looking at a motor. It's very quiet. This I made myself, so it's easy to do. But this will keep 95+% of the gold you put into it, and it's very quick.
Well, considering this sluice box, the river does all the work.
Yep.
And you'd prefer that, I would think. How often do you actually use the rocker box?
It depends. If I find a spot on the stream that doesn't have a lot of flowing water, I'll bring this in. And that, I'm finding good gold, then if I've got a spot that's got good flowing water, I use the sluice box. So it just allows, again, each piece of equipment kind of has its niche on how it's used on the stream, and it just gives you more tools in the toolbox to be able to go at it.
Okay. Yeah, you want to bring it up there since they're running down there? We'll show you the smaller side of the motorized, which is, it's a electric powered gold wheel. And a lot of people seem kind of shocked when we say electricity and water, but it's all sealed up, it's all contained, but it still falls under motorized because there's a motor powering it.
And where are you from?
I'm from Pittston.
Yeah, I was going to say it's Central Maine Club.
Yeah, we call it the Central Maine Gold Prospectors, but we prospect in Western Maine. It's kind of a, I guess a cliche you could say, but we call it Central Maine to bring in people from all over the state. And where we actually meet and have our winter meetings inside is in Windsor, Maine, which is Central Maine area. We just prospect in Western Maine because that's where most of the gold's found.
So you're commuting to your hobby.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a couple-hour commute, but it's well worth it.
That's Philip Moulton, president of the Central Maine Gold Prospectors Club. Mark and Rob have also been explaining everything to me. Rosie has been kind of quiet so far, but she's now setting up her power wheel, and it's time to look at some of the more high-tech ways to go gold prospecting. But that time is going to have to wait until next week's show. So far in today's show, we've learned how to prospect with a pan, a sluice box, and a rocker box. On next week's program, we'll get right into the water and fire up the dredges. This whole visit to the Swift River in Byron has been extraordinary. Coos Canyon is a favorite tourist stop just downstream from us here. Otherwise, this area of Western Maine is pretty quiet. But they've been taking gold out of this river since the 1800s. We'll get the story on that next week, too. If you want to share this show with somebody, it's now up on the website at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Join me again every Saturday at 9, Sunday at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.